Every country is shaped around its past, its history, and their events. After their independence, Cuba's future advancement plans, if any, were in power of Fidel Castro as he rose to power in the country. He escalated as a veritable communist in 1959, leading Cuba's revolution and to induct as a prime minister and a president since 1976. This political view was the full ideology of the United States of America, the strongest nation in the world. The following events contain real footage of the Bay of Pigs invasion, the conflict between the two nations. Let's go back to the year 1959. The Cuban Revolution concluded. Its main objective succeeded, and it was to overthrow the military government led by Batista, and to restrain U.S. influences and positions in Cuban territory. This was Fidel Castro's speech when gaining control over Cuba after its revolution.
U.S. ambassadors have been running Cuba too long, and that foreign interest will be allowed to stay here only as long as they benefit the country. Therefore, the country's economy will be re-established immediately. There will be good wages and good prices for our people.
As the President of the United States of America, the nation wants to address that at the beginning of 1959, United States companies owned about 40% of the Cuban sugar lands, 90% of the mines and mineral concessions, 80% of the utilities, practically all the oil industry, and supplied two-thirds of Cuba's imports. However, we do not intend to take any actions with respect to the property or other economic interests which American citizens formally held in Cuba, other than formal and normal negotiations with a free and independent Cuba.
President Kennedy made clear points about Cuban economy. It was mostly driven by the United States, and Fidel wanted to take control over all financial goods in the country and empower Cubans to work. Then, public confessions were made from both countries as to what the relationship plans were. First went Fidel in the representation of the Cuban governmental ideology at the time and accusations toward the United States.
Governments have the right to follow their political line, and the United States follows its own. Therefore, what we cannot permit is allow a policy to be imposed upon us. The United States have made interventions, threats, and those things have always come from that country. They have done all they can to remove the revolutionary government.
President Kennedy then publicly responded the accusations from Cuba in a news conference.
Mr. President, what are your future plans in regarding interventions in Cuba?
Well, first I want to say that there will not be, under any conditions, an intervention in Cuba by the United States Armed Forces. And this government will do everything it possibly can, and I think it can meet its responsibilities, to make sure that there are no Americans involved in any actions inside Cuba.
Both speeches were related to Dwight Eisenhower's presidency that lasted until 1959. Then, President Kennedy took his role. However, he left an unfinished meeting with the CIA with strict plans to attack Cuba militarily to overthrow communism. The decision was now in hands of President Kennedy, and after his public speech, he retook the CIA meeting for further conclusions on the open case.
The United States can't permit the expansion of Fidel Castro and the communist ideology. I will proliferate the probability of a full nuclear war against Soviet Union and Cuba, who has become our official enemy.
Mr. President, the given public speech representing the nation states the opposite.
Our top priority is the safety of our nation and citizens. That can be ensured by the extermination of communist ideologies. We have to plan the Bay of Pigs invasion that will represent our attempt to dispatch the communist ideology in Cuba. The previous speech addressing our retirement from involvement in Cuba served as a distraction strategy.
The attacks from the United States were made by camouflaged air forces that appeared to be Cuban military. However, they were US-trained Cuban counter-revolutionists. Their bombs failed their mission to overthrow Fidel Castro from positions of power in Cuba and to exterminate the communist ideology. Not only has this been one of the raddest fails in US history, but it has also carried on in Cuba's history. The relations between the two countries have pertained for long. Fidel Castro remained president until 2008, where he gave his position to his brother. Due to his government, the country has an expectancy delay of 50 years in current society. However, new peace and trade agreements have been signed between the two countries, hoping for the development of Cuba.